Hello students, I wanted to give you a quick review of the abdominal muscles before you do your Google Forms today. So you watch your video lectures hopefully on the muscles that move the vertebral column and then also the muscles that aid in breathing. And I just wanted to show you those so that you could do well on those Google Forms. So here's some helpful hints. We're going to start out in the abdomen with the most superficial layer, the external oblique. Please notice how tall this muscle is. It comes clear up to pec major. And then as I turn, you can see that the external oblique kind of weaves itself into serratus anterior. Now, these are muscles we've learned previously, but they are relevant because external oblique comes all the way up to that boundary. So it's very tall on the rib cage. And also notice that if I go ahead and delete latissimus dorsi, we can see how far back the external oblique reaches, almost clear to, not quite the posterior superior iliac spine, but definitely far towards the back side. And then this central area here is the abdominal aponeurosis. That's just connective tissue. It's very much like sort of a cross between wax paper and really thin leather. And then in the center, this thick tendinous cord that runs from the xiphoid process down to the pubis called the Linea Alba. So all those abdominal muscles are going to connect to the Linea Alba. So I'm going to go ahead and delete just on the one side external oblique, and then immediately we will see internal oblique. Please notice that the upper border of internal oblique is at the bottom of the rib cage. And remember, on the other side, I still have my external oblique. Look how much taller that is. Clear up to pec major and serratus anterior. So internal oblique much shorter. And also, when you're looking at the various images, sometimes people have a hard time telling what muscle they're looking at. We want to look for the grain. Notice external oblique is like this. Internal oblique, and actually the external oblique on the other side would go like this, right? But internal oblique runs like this and then underneath here. The main point is that the grain of the muscle for obliques is diagonal, which is what oblique means. The rectus abdominis has a vertical direction, and the obliques each have a diagonal direction. Okay, so we've got external oblique and then directly underneath that internal oblique. The reason why we're seeing the rectus abdominis is because the aponeurosis got deleted with it. So let me go ahead and delete here so we have some symmetry. Here's rectus. It does have these very strange tendinous intersections all the way down, and you're not guaranteed symmetry across here. So sometimes one tendinous intersection's here and another one's here. They could be offset underneath your skin. So I'm going to delete rectus abdominis on both sides, and I'm also going to get rid of that internal oblique. Notice it's coming even further back than external. And we're left with our deepest layer called the Transversus Abdominis. Again, upper boundary is the rib cage. It is not coming up towards the pec major like external oblique did. And our grain is horizontal. So let's take a look and see how far towards the back it goes. Way back here, Transversus Abdominis. So it's going to pull the front towards the back. It's going to suck in your belly button towards the vertebral column. And you'll notice these two little openings here where the rectus muscle was superficial to transversus, and then it went underneath that aponeurosis. Next thing I want to show you really quick, let me get all my muscles back here, is how these are arranged if we were to take a cross section. So imagine that I'm going to cut this abdomen transversely, and we're going to tip the feet let's see if I can do this. We're going to tip the feet so that we're going to look up from underneath. So it'll be an inferior view. And when we take that transverse section, this would be the anterior side, posterior side, and then right and left. The rectus abdominis is going to show up in this vicinity, and then the vertebral column would be back here. So I'm going to show you a little video of the orientation of all these muscles just so you get a really good idea. Here we have an image that illustrates the interconnectivity of the different muscles and fascia of the abdominal wall. So let's take a look. Here's the skin of the abdomen. The head would be in this direction and the feet would be in this direction. So that way is superior and then inferior. What we see here is the skin. We see some subcutaneous tissue or fat underneath the skin, and then this pinker color is representing the muscles of the abdominal wall. So of course we see rectus abdominis here in two columns. This would represent the linea alba, that connective tissue sort of rope-like structure between the two columns. And then notice everything in this sort of orangish color is the aponeurosis or connective tissue of those abdominal layers. So our most external layer is external oblique, directly underneath that internal oblique, and then finally transversus abdominis. Notice the connective tissues form what's known as a rectus sheath. There's connective tissue around both of these columns independently.